Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea, our new design for GMT, soon to be out, hopefully in August or September. This is just a simple how-to video. Now, this is what the map's going to look like, but this is a printout from a computer as opposed to a nice glossy mounted map board, which you will get with the game. The pieces are wooden pieces like you've seen in the coin games or many other GMT games. The cards are very high quality art work, very nice illustrations of everything from soldiers to kings to earthquakes and volcanoes, all the sort of things you're going to see in the game. There also will be civilization displays. At the moment they're being worked on. They will look somewhat similar to this, only nice with a nice car with nice art, where you have the name of the civilization. There are 10 of them, what their specials are, and some little rules and a place to put your discs when you play. So that's the basic game. It can be played by up to 6 people. It can be played solo. It can play with a combination of live players and solitaire players, because there's a fully developed set of solitaire rules for the non-player to do things. The first thing you want to do when you play the game is decide how many civilizations you want to play with. And so you want 2 civilizations or 6 civilizations, and most of the time one person will play 1 civilization. There are rules that allow somebody to play 2 civilizations or even 3 at the same time, but for most people who play this game are going to play 1 civilization. Either they're going to play them against other players or against the solo bot. So you decide how many civilizations are going to be in the game and what kind of a game you want. For example, for today's explanation, we're going to play with 3 civilizations. You can decide to play on the whole map, where you could be anywhere you wanted, and for a wide open game of exploration and play nice like a Euro game. Or you could play in a tiny part of the map, like half the map, where basically you're in a fight from the death from the very beginning. And or in between, where you play with 2/3 of the map, either this 2/3 or that 2/3, where you have a little more breathing space, but you're still probably going to wind up fighting. So this can be a war game. There are even scenarios that are war game scenarios. Or it can be a Euro game, a civilization building game, because this is not about conquering the world so much as it is about having the best civilization. You get points for having cities, for building wonders, for doing good things. And of course, you can beat your enemies down. That kind of helps you go to the head of the class, but you don't have to do that. You can play nice, or you can play war. So we're going to play 3 civilizations, and we're going to go for a half map, and we're going to go for the western side. As you can see, if you look at the map, it goes from Egypt, Phoenicia, Troy, Minoa, and Mycenae in the east to Rome, Gaul, Celtiberia, Mauritania, and Carthage in the west. We're going to play a west-only game. When you do a west-only game, you put a line of chits down half of the map to block out that part of the map. So no pieces will be placed in these areas or to that side. The white markers are used for a lot of different things. That's one of them. So this leaves you this part of the map to put things on or whatever. You're going to play on this part of the map. So we're going to play. There are 5 civilizations here. So we're going to play them with those 5. Choose from among those 5. And so we'll have 3 players. Each player picks a color they like. You pick out the first player. First is blue. Blue gets to decide which of the 5 civilizations they want. And this player decides he wants to be Rome. So he's the first player for this turn. He puts his marker down here on the turn order. He then takes 12 pieces to start, because that's what you do in this setup. And there are 24 setups based on how many players there are, plus historical setups, plus special solo and wargame setups. So there's about 50 ways to play this game. He'll start out. When you start out, you put 2 tiles in your homeland. That's what these are. Rome, you can see they got a big symbol on them. That's the SBQR symbol. And then you put 2 in every land area adjacent to the home. If you have tiles left over, you place 1 in every sea area adjacent to the home. In cases where parts of the map are a little tight, you have a second option to go outside that line, but he fills up that first center, so he's fine. So that's what the Roman player does. The Roman player then gets 5 cards, dealt at random from the deck. Those are these. The next player to choose will be red. Red now has 4 places to choose from. He's going to decide he wants to go, doesn't want to be, Carthage and Gaul are going to be right next to Rome. He decides, I don't want to be next to the Romans at start. I'm going to pick the Celtic Variants. These are basically Spanish. He'll be the second player this turn. And he'll do the same thing. He'll put 2 in the homeland. Now, you notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places around like the Celtic Variant homeland. You put 2 in every place next to it, 1 place is going to be empty. That's your decision. You can be empty in the back or empty in the forward. He'll go this way. 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. And there's the Celtic Variants. They'll take their 5 cards. The last guy is yellow. He has 3 choices. He could pick Gaul, in which case he'd be basically the ham and a sandwich between 2 pieces of bread, which is not a bad place to play as long as you're looking forward to fighting a war right off the bat. He could be in the Mauritania. Mauritania would be a nice place. You wouldn't have to deal with the Romans, but he's going to be right up next to the Celts right away. You can run up against them right up front. So he's going to pick Carthage. He's going to pick Carthage for 3 reasons. 1, got a little more breathing space. 2, it has some very nice special abilities. And 3, the Carthaginians. You get to be Hannibal. So you'll be the 3rd person there. He'll put 2 in Carthage, 2 there, and 2 there. Now he'll put 1, that's all the land areas next to Carthage. Then he'll go to the sea areas, 1, 2, 3. There's all the sea areas that touch Carthage. He still has 3 pieces left. He can now place them 1 or 2 pieces in any area next to where he already has a piece. So he can go into Sicily because it's next to that. He can go out to Malta because it's next to that. He can go out to the sea zone because it's next to that. There he is. And there is his setup. And he'll get 5 cards. That's the order of play for the first turn. Then you put 1 color of each over there for your victory points. Show what your victory points will be. And then we take 2 pieces to put over here for, this is going to be Epic 1, Turn 1. There are up to 4 epics in a game, up to 4 turns in every epic. You can decide before you play how much of a game you want to play. Do you want to try to go for the whole thing? Do you want to try to play for 2 hours? Do you want to play till one person gets to 25 or 50 points and then end the turn there? So you can make it customizable for how much time you want to spend and how much time you have to spend. Or you can go for the whole game. And of course, once this is up in Vassal, you'll be able to save it on the computer. All right, so we have all that set to go. So the Romans are the first person. The first thing a player does, and there's a nice simple player aid card which shows you what you do, is each player will do half of the turn in order, then they'll all do the second half. So the first thing is, you have a limited number of tiles in supply. You could voluntarily remove tiles from the map to put them off here. That gives you more to place somewhere else. Although, in case you're running out of tiles. First thing you do is you get growth. You get 1 for every area that has 2 markers. Not 1 marker or 3, but 2. So these are considered settlements. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 settlements. So you put 5 of those on your card. You also get presence at sea. For every 2 areas where you have a piece at sea, you get 1 more. There's another growth. You also get commerce. For every other civilization which you are adjacent to, you get 1. For example, the Romans are adjacent to the Carthaginians. They're going to get an extra growth for trade. Just one. Even though they're adjacent to two pieces, they're adjacent to one civilization, so they get one for that civilization. Then you look and see if you have any bonuses for who you are. The Romans have two choices for growth bonuses. If there's a city in Rome, they can either draw a card or take two tiles. If there's no city present, they get to put a tile in or adjacent to Rome. This is to show the Romans, the big population, the commitment to the Rome ever after. So they're going to take that. So that's a freebie and that goes there. These are free of theirs to place anywhere. When you place tiles, you have to place it where you have pieces or adjacent to where you have pieces. 3 tiles make a city. City are victory points and help you get cards. So the Romans here are going to decide to play to get some cities. Of course, the more cities you have, the fewer settlements you have, which means the less growth. It's a nice trade-off. If you have a lot of cities, you're not getting a lot of new stuff. If you have no cities and a lot of settlements, you're getting a lot of toys to play with. So the Romans do that. The Romans also decide they don't particularly like to have the Carthaginians in Sicily. It's a Roman thing. So since they can chain off from here to there, they're going to go into Sicily. And you can stack up to 4 tiles on land and up to 2 at sea. At no time during the growth or the card phase can you have more than that in an area per color. Everybody, in this case all 3 of them, could all have 4 guys here. But 4 is the most you're going to be able to do until you get to the combat phase. The Romans have 1 more left. They're going to make 1 more city. The Romans have done theirs. That's the end of the Roman growth. Now the next player is the Celts. The Celts are going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to grow with. And we're going to put those on their card. They're not going to get, they have nothing at sea, so they're not going to get any growth for sea like the Romans and the Carthaginians, nor are they adjacent, touching anybody, so they're not going to get anything for being next to another civilization. So they got 6. However, their growth bonus in every one of the 10 civilizations is a different bonus. Some give you more cards, some give you more tiles, some help you in combat, some give you some special things. These guys, the Celts, at the start of the Celtic growth phase, they gain 1 tile. Ta-da! In addition, they gain 1 talent if there's at least 1 Celtic tile in or adjacent to Celtiberia. The white discs are used for a lot of things. They are talents, which is basically special kind of money, markers, informational markers like you've seen here and there, and they are for bonuses in combat. All right? They would get a 2nd talent if there was a Celtic city in or adjacent, which there isn't. So they've got this. The talent they're going to keep on their card for use later. I'll explain that when the time comes. The Celts decide they want a city, because again, victory points and the bonuses, another city, and they decide which way do they want to go now. So they're going to go a little bit everywhere. They're going to grow out to there, they're going to go to sea, and they're going to cross over to there. So they're not making they're moving a little closer to both of the other opponents, but they're not making threatening moves, unlike the Romans, because this is what Romans do. These are nice, peaceful Celts. Leave me alone. I'm digging in the mines. I'm raising sheep, drinking wine. I'm happy. So now we get to the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians will get, they have 1, 2, 3, so that's going to be 3 settlements of 2 each. They have 2, 4, so they have 4 sea areas, so 1 for 2, 1 for 2. They're going to get 2 more growth. They're adjacent to the Romans. Boy, are they adjacent to the Romans. They get 1 for commerce, because even if somebody's being unfriendly to you, there's still commerce. Again, every turn is a wide amount of time. Every one of these epics is several hundred years. So the Carthaginians have these tiles of place. Their bonus, the Carthaginians do not get any bonuses in growth. All of their bonuses are in combat, competition. So this is what they have to place. So they want to have a city in Carthage. They want to have another city here. They decide they want to fight the Romans at sea. So they put there. And they're going to put 3 here on land. Now, right now they have 3, but the Romans have 4. But I said the Carthaginians get bonuses in combat. So they're willing to do that for right now. That's the growth phase. When everybody does the growth phase, you do the card phase. In the card phase, each player, again, in turn order, will play a card. So the Romans are going to go first. You keep going. When it's your turn, you can play a card, or you can build a wonder once a turn, or you can pass. If you pass, you're out until the end of the card phase, although you can always play, there are cards called negate cards to stop somebody from doing something. So for the Romans, for example, they're going to play, their hand has a massive earthquake. This would knock out 4 tiles in here. The Carthaginians look at their hand to see if they have any way to stop this. Unfortunately, they don't. So they're going to take a big hit. So they're going to go up to 2 tiles from each of 2 adjacent areas. So they're going to lose these 2, and they're going to lose those 2. Very tough day for the Carthaginians to start. This card is reshuffled in the deck when played, so it could come back very quickly. The Romans are done. Next player is the Celtic Variants. They're going to look at their cards, and they're going to say, oh, I've got a sunken city. I found this treasure city. So they pick any area they want, and they put 2 tiles in any sea area. These are the kind of cards that you can place anywhere. When you're doing growth, you're tiling off things. There are other cards where things just pop up. If they wanted this sunken city to be over here, it could be here. Think of it as a couple of explorers just went out that way and boom, they found something. Or they could say, no, I'm going to keep this for myself. So they get that. So they put 2 tiles in the sea area. They immediately gain a victory point because of what this card says. And they gain a talent. They found money. So they found things. It's a good thing. It's a good day for them to be a Celt. Now we go down to Carthage. Carthage is not happy with what just happened. So they're going to do a volcanic eruption on the Romans because basically if you throw a disaster on me, I'm going to throw one right back at you. They choose 1 land or sea area and remove 2 tiles from it and 1 for every each of 2 adjacent areas. So they're going to take 2 tiles out of Rome because the Romans see Carthage, and they're going to take 1 tile from each of 2 adjacent areas. They'll take 1 out of here, and they'll take 1 out of here. So, tit for tat, so to speak. This is going to go around until everybody is either out of cards or passes cards. There are some cards, for example, I'm not going to do a whole turn, which will place sea peoples, pirates, all kinds of nasty people. That's what the black tiles are for. The black tiles are the bad guys that nobody owns. Let's take this one here. This will be sea peoples. Place 3 black tiles in any 1 land area adjacent to the sea area. So if the Carthaginians played it, the sea peoples could show up in Rome. A pirate invasion. There are cards that give you land improvement and other things that give you pluses. Like this one with the Celts would give them 2 more tiles. But they have to place them where they already have tiles. There are other cards which are basically betting cards. There's a Hippodrome race card where everybody gets to take a bet to see who's going to get a bonus out of it. You never lose anything, you're just going to gain something. There are also great people in the game. Like here's an orator, which this orator, for example, would take any 1 land area which contains 2 tiles or more of 2 or more civilizations, which is these, and they can replace up to 2 tiles with equal numbers of another. So they can replace 2 of the Roman tiles with their own. If the Romans had an assassin, they could stop that. So there are guards that there are great people which help you, great people which hurt other people, and great people which save you. Assassins, healers, spies, people who bribe you. And there are cards which you can play on people to cost them cards, cost them talents, cost them tiles. There are 110 cards in this deck, and there are 7 are wonders, 7 are what's called must-plays. The rest are all across the board. If you look on the website for GMT, you'll see we did 6 articles explaining all the different cards. All right, so we do this until everybody has either out of cards or passed. It's usually not a good idea to use all of your cards. There are some cards, for example, which have a C on them, competition, which are only useful in the competition phase. You can't play them during the course of play. And also at the end of a turn, you're not going to draw back to a full hand. You're going to draw cards based on how many cities you have. So you may only have a couple, three or four cards for the next turn. So this goes back and forth. When everybody's either passed or out of cards, we go to the competition phase. We have a competition here. We go in turn order, and the Romans will go first. And you go where there's competition, you go from east to west and north to south. So we're going to start over here. There's a competition here. A competition occurs whenever you have 2 or more colors and one of those has 2 pieces. For example, that's not a competition. There's one of each, it's a cooperation. They're sharing. This is a competition, and this is a competition because one side has 2 or more pieces. So these guys are attacking Rome. The Romans, look at they have a competition bonus. During competition, they may place 1 white tile in Rome and place 1 in each of 2 other land areas adjacent to Rome if there's a competition. There's no competitions here, so all they have is that Roman defense. That's their competition. Now you play cards. These people are a non-player. All the blacks are always invaders, pirates, bandits, rebels, whatever. So the Romans, however, have a card called Armored Infantry. They're going to play this here. This means in competition, in the first 2 rounds, they don't lose anybody. If this was a player, he'd play cards too. We go this. So we start looking at competition is done like is based on numbers. There's no dice in this game. There are 3 of them to 2 of them. Normally, the civilization with the fewest pieces would have to remove 1. So they'd normally have to remove 1. However, in this thing says the first 2 rounds you don't. So the first round they're supposed to lose somebody, they don't. If these people are still around, this guy has to lose 1. He does. Second round of combat, it's even. When it's even, each player would lose 1. But the Romans, because of this, don't have to lose somebody in the second round. So in the second round of combat, only he dies. Now that card is used up. It's discarded. So now the Romans have the most number of pieces. So the black piece is removed, but since there's nobody else left, nobody else dies here. So the Romans have won that battle. Yay! The next battle going this way is here. There are 2 Carthaginians to 1 Roman. If nobody plays any cards or anything, this would be an easy Carthaginian victory. However, the Romans are going to play a card. If you're fighting another player, you're going to put your card face down. And any number of cards you're going to play, you can put face down. The Carthaginians have no cards to affect this, but the Carthaginians have combat bonuses. At the start of a competition, they can add 1 white tile in Carthage if there's a combat, and 1 other white tile, any 1 other land combat, basically Hannibal, and 1 other sea combat, because they're the Carthaginian navy, who at the time, in this period, they were the navy to beat, as the Romans found out many times. So they've placed those, but they have no cards. So now we flip this over. The normally there are 3 to 1, so the Romans are dead. But we have ramming speed. In each sea area in which a civilization playing this card is involved in combat, you take one black die, one black and one white, and put them in a cup or in your hand, and you pull a thing. If a white tile is selected, you remove one piece from the others of the enemy. So you've rammed him and sunk him. If a black tile comes, you'd each lose one. So in doing this, pulling a white tile, the Romans sink one of the Carthaginians. If you have colored and white tiles, you have to lose your white tiles first. So that's gone. Now we have the second round of combat. There's 2-1, he's gone, and they live. That was maybe not the best use of the ramming speed card because it wasn't even combat, but it shows you what you can do. If the battle had been even, that would have made a big difference. It would have brought it back to even. For example, if there had been 2 of them there against that, if you in the ramming speed pull out a white chip, he'd go. Now it's an equal battle. They would each lose one. And now the combat would stop because now there's one of each and they'd share. But as we saw, Carthaginians won that one. Here we have a combat. There are 3 Carthaginians and one of their Carthaginian white tiles against 4 Romans. It's an even fight. If nobody did anything else, they would each equally lose pieces. One each, one each, one each. For example, if there are no cards, they'd each lose a tile. If you have talents, you can pay a talent instead of losing a tile. But the Carthaginians and Romans don't have talents. Or, instead of losing a talent, you can elect to discard a card from your hand. So say if you have a weak card or a card you don't really care about, and when you want to save something, you would discard the card. So let's say, for example, in this case, the Carthaginians really want this place. So normally in the first round, each will lose a piece. They'll discard a card instead of losing a tile. The Romans, however, have to lose one. In the next round of combat, there are now 4 Carthaginian to 3 Roman. Romans lose, Carthage lose. It's now 3-2. The lower guy loses, the bigger guy loses. It's now 2-1. The lower guy loses, and they remain. Ta-da, they've won. There can be combats where you have pieces of more than one color. For example, in this case, if you had 3 Romans, 2 of those and 2 of those, the players with the civilizations with the least would lose one each. So they'd each lose one, then the Romans would lose one. The second round, they'd each lose one and leave the Romans left. So that's how that works. So now you've seen combat, and you do that until you're finished all the competitions. Now, the competition represents not just military conflict, but any other way that 2 civilizations could clash. A trade war, a culture war, a religious war, and certain cards portray that. They'll say heresy and pirates and rebels and things like that. When you finish all the competition, you then go to the next phase of the turn, which will be on a nice player aid card. These right now are just typed up from word processing. The artists will make them nice and glossy and colored and pretty and all that. But now what you should do is you count victory points. Well, first of all, you clean up the map. Any white tiles are gone. And if there are any overstacks, if there are more than 3 tiles in a land area or more than 2 in a sea area of the same color, they would go. So for example, if this battle had been fought and the Carthaginians had lost nobody, that tile would go away. If they've been able to add a tile in combat, because in combat you can overstack, they would have to reduce that to that. So that's a cleanup. So now you look at the map for, first to determine control of the sea. Control of the sea means if you have all the land areas around the sea area and a piece there, anybody else, all their pieces are removed. So for example, if the Carthaginians had that, and there were Romans and Celts there as well, the Carthaginians control all the land areas around that sea zone. So even though there's no combat, these guys, they have no place to dock, they're gone. Then you get victory points for cities. The Romans have one city. They get a victory point. The Carthaginians have no cities. The Celts have 1, 2, 3 cities. So they get 3 more points. So they're up to 4. So it's 4 to 1 to 0. Now you go to adjust the turn order for next turn. Whoever has the most cities is going first. That's going to be the red. Next most cities, since they have 1, and then finally these people. If there's a tie, the player with a equal number of cities, whoever the most victory points would be first. So as you can see, this means they'll be going first in the turn, which is a good thing in that you get to do things first, but a bad thing in that everybody else gets to react and place their stuff down after they've seen what you do. So going last is not a bad thing, and nor is going first. Now we're going to get the draw of cards. You get a base of 3 cards. You always get at least 3 cards from the deck. If, however, you have 4 cities, you would get a bonus. Nobody has 4 cities, so everybody's going to get 3 cards. If the Celts, however, had a 4th city, 1, 2, 3, 4, they would get a 4th card. So they would have 4 cards at the start, everybody else would have 3, plus whatever's left in their hands. And now we start again, doing what you did before. The first turn in every epic, the first turn of the game, and the first turn of every epic is a full turn. At the end of the second and third turns, you draw a card to see if the epic ends. So, for example, if this had been the end of the second turn, we would see if the epic ended. You draw a card, and if the number matches what's there, the epic's over. When an epic ends, you get special end of epic victory points, and you get an end of epic events. You're going to draw a card and see what you get. Some of these are good for everybody. Some are bad for everybody. Some hurt the guy who's in the lead. Some help the guys who are in the back. It's a way of balancing out the game, and also so you never really know who's winning. You may have the most cities. You may have the most points. But being the big dog draws attention to you. So you could take the worst of it. Also, when you deal out cards, there are cards called must plays. In the very first draw of the game, any must plays are discarded and replaced with real cards. From then on, whenever you draw a card and a must play comes up, you have to immediately do that. There are 7 of these. One is a turn-ending card, which will mean the epic's going to end at the end of the turn. The other ones are invasions. People will come from the east, west, north, south, or out of the sea. The invasion cards are run by whoever has the least number of victory points. So, even though the Carthaginians have gotten beaten up, and outpointed, when the must-play card that says Northern Hordes has been drawn up, they'll decide where the Northern Hordes are going to be placed. This would place, it says player with the fewest victory points picks one area on the north edge of the map. Let's say, for example, he could go against the Romans to make it easier if he's going to fight a war, or he could do it to try to go after the Celts. Being Romans and Carthaginians, they're going to go after each other. But again, it's his choice. He would put 4 black tiles here. And he would 4 black tiles in every adjacent land area. So there'd be 4 here. There'd be 4 in Rome. And there'd be 4 over here and 4 over here. So this is a massive invasion. The Romans are going to have a lot to deal with when the time comes. But fortunately, they'll have a chance, since they're going to be going second in the turn, they'll have a chance to deal with this. They'll be able to put pieces out to fight it. Because you get a minimum number of tiles for growth, a minimum number of cards. And there are northern invasions, Saharan invasions, invasions from the east, invasions from the west, and invasions that pop up out of the sea, the infamous sea peoples. There's also a card called the Breath of God, which makes everybody discard all their cards and redraw. And it's the only card in the game which cannot be stopped. There's no cards that can negate it because you can't negate the word of God. But not all of the 7 of these cards are that bad. The Breath of God, for example, would help the lower players because it wipes out the bigger ones. Is Atlantis rises. Atlantis literally just pops up. And anybody who's near it will get bonuses because they've got treasures and technology and whatever you get from Atlantis. And these can come up over and over again. Other things you can do are wonder cards. Wonders are not in the deck. Wonders are set aside. There's 7 of them, 7 wonders of the world. On your turn, when you're playing a card, instead of playing a card to do something, you can say, I want to build a wonder. You can do this once per turn. Not once per round, but once per turn. So each player can build 1 wonder in a turn. Let's, for example, I want the Great Lighthouse. To build a wonder, you have to remove 2 tiles of yours from the map. So let's say these guys want to build it. They remove those 2. They have to pay 3 more things to do it. Those 3 can be any combination of cards they discard from their hand or talents they have on hand. So, as I said, you can use talents to save guys in combat. You can use talents to build wonders. You can also use talents to spend a talent instead of losing a tile to a card. So talents have their advantage. When they build it, they get a nice block with the art on it. We just have the type names right now because when the artists will there'll be stickers that place on these blocks. He'll place the wonder. He'll then take 5 tiles out of supply and put them on the card. Each wonder does one thing special in one phase of the turn. Some help with growth, some help with combat, some help with cards. Every time you use a wonder, you pull a piece off. When it's empty, there are no more benefits from the wonder, but the wonder's still on the map. And as long as you control the area where the wonder is, you're going to get a victory point. So if the Carthaginians take that wonder, they're not going to gain anything, but the Celts won't have any anymore. Or if it's empty, the Celts won't have it. But even if it's all been used up, they'll still get a victory point for that. So wonders are used for victory points and to give you extra bonuses and to sort of customize your civilization. As I said, some wonders help with growth, some with combat, some with extra cards, some with money. One, the Oracle lets you switch the turn order, because you're the Oracle. There are other little things that happen in the game, like in combat, you can get loot if you wipe out 3 or more of one color in an area. Loot is a talent. Some people, like the Mycenaeans, get bonus loot, because that's what, think of Agamemnon sacking Troy. So there are a lot of things that can do in a turn. And every turn is going to be different, because you can have different cards, you can have different events, and of course, you're going to have different personalities when you play. You saw 2 people going tooth and nail at it, one person just happily building away. At some point, either one of these 2 will knock the other out, or they'll say, we got to get together and knock this guy down. Now, one of the nice things about the game is, even like in a situation like this, which looks hopeless, it's not. Any of you who knows anything about Greek and Roman literature knows the story of Aeneas, or the Virgil's Aeneid. That was the last survivors of Troy sailing across as exiles and setting up a new land. The Aeneas factor allows a guy to vacate the table and start again fresh somewhere else. So you're never knocked out of this game. No matter how bad things look, you can make a comeback. So nobody's ever knocked out. Excuse me. Finally, there is a full set of solo rules. You could play this game where I could be the Romans, you could be the Carthaginians, and the solitaire player could play the Celts. There's a nice, very simple flow chart, again on a player aid card, which will look nicer when the artist gets to it, which says determine if they're hostile to somebody or they're friendly. And basically, if they're in the lead, they want to be friendly to people. If you're in the lead, they don't like you as much. If you're next to them, they don't like you as much. If you've done anything nasty to them, they like you even less. And you'll pull chips out of a cup to see if they like you or not. The more bad things, the more black chips will be in the cup. The more good things, the more white chips. And if they like you, they'll pretty much ignore you. If they're hostile to you, they'll attack. Because they have three sets of priorities. One, the basic, building up their base. No matter whether they're hostile or not, they will look to home to make sure their home is strong. Then, if they're friendly, they'll go out and do things to make points. If they're hostile, they'll come after you. They'll try to get their pieces in your territories. They will try to play cards against you. They will do all sorts of nasty things. There's even a list of priority of how they play cards, depending on if they're hostile or friendly to you. So the non-player solo bot is a fairly smart, if somewhat conservative player, but they're there and they rarely make anything which doesn't sound right. We've worked out very, very well what order they'll play cards in if they have cards. You guys, in a solo game, you would see, in a player game, cards are secret. In a solitaire game, the solitaire player cards are out there to be seen. So you'll know what they can do. Those are the order they play it. Or you could play, I could be the Romans, and both of these could be solitaires. So I could play against two solitaire components. Any of the 50 different setups in this game can be played solitaire. There are also, as I said, several historical setups, like the Punic Wars. There are several historical war game scenarios, such as the Persian invasion of Greece and Alexander's invasion back. There are the Hittites and the Egyptians, and others. There's a lot of ways to play this game. That pretty much is everything. It's an easy game to play. It's endlessly variable. It's endlessly customizable. And there's no dice. Thank you very much.